Welcome to I Love This Thing So Fricking Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Erin Pine, a themed entertainment writer and producer. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, here's how this works. Erin will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Erin?
Yes.
Good. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so fricking much?
I absolutely love and am a huge fan of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. And so, how does this fit into themed entertainment, you might ask? Well, I have loved Lord of the Rings for a very long time, read the books as a teenager, and then, of course, watched all the movies many times. Not just the movies, but the hundreds of hours of behind the scenes. How did they make this movie? I also went to Oxford and sat in the Eagle and Child to sit in the same place where Tolkien sat. So I'm a fan. So when the Themed Entertainment Association, the TEA, decided that they were going to have a huge experience and event in New Zealand, they announced that it was going to be hosted by Weta, which is the organization that created all of the props and visuals for Lord of the Rings films. And they were going to all go to Hobbiton together. I knew I had to go, no matter what it took. I got the chance in August to go with the Themed Entertainment Association and the Asia Pacific region to New Zealand, and it was a week of amazing. I think I cried several times while we were there. It was just a Lord of the Rings fan nerd dream. I basically went as a speaker for the TEA. I did a talk on resonate with diverse cultures on using archetypal design in themed entertainment. And so I gave my talk. So I had to work for a whole 20 minutes out of the entire week. And then after that, it was just fun and amazement. So in Auckland, New Zealand, we went to tour the Weta Unleashed experience, and Sir Richard Taylor, who runs Weta, was there the whole time. He listened to my talk. He listened to all of our talks. And then he took us through Weta Unleashed, and then he hosted a party and a dinner there right inside this amazing facility, which is filled with giant scenic, giant props, models, sculpts. It was beautiful. And then also while we were in Auckland, we got to tour, a bunch of different experiences like the All Blacks, which is their rugby team thing. But mostly we were focusing on Lord of the Rings things. So just the Weta Cave, their gift shop alone was filled with so many props and sculpts and like the giant trolls that you could take pictures with. So then, of course, a couple of days go by, and then it's time to go to Hobbiton. So we all piled in a bunch of buses.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay. We all went to Hobbiton together and got to tour all of Hobbiton together, have dinner in Hobbiton with the owner of Hobbiton. And we walked into a hobbit hole and I just sat down and teared up for a little while. So it was just an amazing experience overall. We went to Wellington after and toured all of Weta Workshop with Sir Richard Taylor. He let us hold all kinds of amazing props from the films. So it was a Lord of the Rings nerd dream that I got to experience just a few months ago.
That's wonderful. Thank you for telling us about Lord of the Rings today.
Well, it was more about the trip than Lord of the Rings itself, but it was awesome.
Well, let's take a moment to take a few steps back in time. How did you first get interested in Lord of the Rings to lead to this trip ultimately happening?
I suppose I was always a big fan of fantasy and sci-fi because of my father. My father was a big sci-fi fan, and so I grew up with Carl Sagan and watching X-Files with my dad and reading fantasy. And so Lord of the Rings was introduced to me probably by my father, reading The Hobbit when I was little, and then picking up The Lord of the Rings as a teenager, and just absolutely falling in love with the entire world. And then when the movies came out, in the early 2000s, it was so visually stunning that I fell in love with it all over again. To the point where when I bought a house, I did my entire kitchen as a Hobbit kitchen.
What makes a kitchen a Hobbit kitchen?
A Hobbit kitchen includes a giant round window. Everything has to be rounded off. And then giant roots growing from the ground, or actually growing from the ceiling, and then coming all the way down because you're underground. Warm colors, everything wooden, rustic, that kind of thing.
That's really where your interest in themed entertainment design is coming in, all those little details of, yes, this is a kitchen in a house, but how can we make it feel like you're underground?
That's right. Before I was involved in any way with theme park design, I was creating my own things. That's for sure.
So when you got the opportunity to go on this trip to New Zealand, what were you most looking forward to seeing?
Two things. I was most interested in seeing Hobbiton and walking inside a real hobbit hole. I couldn't wait. But also meeting Sir Richard Taylor, who to me is a superstar. Like, yes, I've watched 13 hours of The Lord of the Rings with Elijah Wood, but I've watched dozens and dozens of hours of Sir Richard Taylor explaining how he made everything, from the leatherworks to the swords to the models to the armor for horses. Everything was created to make this film seem really real. So when I met Sir Richard Taylor, it was a great honor for me because he's always been very inspiring to me, all the things that he does. And now I'm even more inspired by him because we got to go to his home. He owns a huge property south of Wellington. And you know how Walt Disney was always famous for having these, his trains? He loved his model trains and ride around on trains. He has nothing on Sir Richard Taylor's train set. We rode around his property on his mini trains that you can ride for over 30 minutes. The track is huge, and his entire property is a giant art sculpture garden, acres and acres of it, including an entire miniature Middle Earth that he made himself. The giant stone trolls, a maze where there's a statue of Gollum in the middle, an entire head of Smog, like full size head of Smog, just coming down the bank. It's an amazing place, and he opens it up specifically for charity events and for children. And it's just the most wonderful place I've ever been. He and his wife built the whole thing themselves. It's so cool.
It sounds like you had the wonderful opportunity as a person who not only loves a story, but bringing the stories to life in our world to interact with someone who has that passion and demonstrates it in every possible way.
Richard Taylor's the most passionate person I've ever met. Every single thing that comes out of his mouth is about how passion and the striving for perfection in everything you do is so important. It's important to him, and it's important to all of us in themed entertainment where we want to make it so good and so real people just lose themselves in when they walk in. And that's what I really felt when I walked into the Hobbit holes at Hobbiton. You could tell every inch of it was just pure love. Someone put love into every little piece of this, and you could feel it when you walked in. You could turn the sinks on and water was running. It's a real fire, not a fake fire in the fireplace. It was amazing.
Did anything surprise you on your trip that you didn't expect?
The thing I didn't expect was the relationships that I built with these amazing people. For the TEA, the Themed Entertainment Association, the people who kind of ran this trip was Melissa Rumino, Matt Barton, Stephen Cavett. They put this whole thing together and curated the most amazing experiences, and the most incredible people from the Asia Pacific region and everywhere came together to experience this. And everyone was so joyful and loving and just wonderful conversations, wonderful friends. Everyone's so passionate. I went with a few people and we went over to Mount Victoria in order to scout out some of the Lord of the Rings sites so that we could sit in the tree that Frodo sat in the film, and we could hide from the Nazgul in the exact place where the hobbits hid from the Nazgul. So we were nerds and got amazing photos and had a lot of fun together. So it was really the relationships I built with people I'd never met. And now we have shared this amazing thing. So when we see each other again at different events or park openings or working together, then we have this amazing experience that we've shared that connects us.
Is there anything that you don't like about Lord of the Rings or the myriad of Lord of the Rings related topics we've talked about today? And if so, how do you handle that?
That's a hard one because I tend to love everything. I even love when the fans fight over different things, like, oh, that's inaccurate and that's wrong and they should have done it this way. I think it's fun to just engage in those types of things. And people get mad at me because I'm like, no, I love it. It's so good. This is why they did it that way. And they're like, no, it was wrong. Way back, I went to a Lord of the Rings convention, and it was so different from other fandom conventions I'd been to because other conventions are about having fun and in dressing. And yes, they dress up too, but it was more about the fun and the parties. Like Harry Potter, it's all about going to the Yule Ball and playing Quidditch, and people hug each other when they meet. If you go to a Star Trek convention, everyone's dressed up, and there's this lightness, this levity about it where people make fun of their own thing. Lord of the Rings convention is very serious. Everyone is loving it, yes, but it was highly academic. So I loved it.
And it probably goes back to the attitude that Tolkien seemed to have about his own work, that he's going to have the whole history figured out and the language figured out and all the little details, and all these details are very important. So it's honoring him in a way that the way you and other people are celebrating this series, this franchise, is by getting into all those details and taking them very seriously.
It's true. At one of the Lord of the Rings conventions, I went to a talk where all they talked about was the accurateness of the moon throughout the Lord of the Rings series and how Tolkien created an entire timeline. And not only that, he followed that timeline perfectly with the waning and waxing of the moon. So when they look up at the moon at a certain date, it matches up completely within his story. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of detail for a writer.
That is meticulous to an extreme degree.
Yeah. And someone else took that information and his notes and studied it and then did a talk on it.
It just goes to show that some people, they watch a thing, they enjoy the thing, and that is the complete enjoyment. And some people, it's about picking apart the thing, and there's the enjoyment.
And I'm a fan of a lot of things, right? So I love Lord of the Rings. I also love Harry Potter and I love Star Trek and I love Jane Austen. But Lord of the Rings has always been very special to me. And I've been completely inspired by the trip to New Zealand in that I want to make my own hobbit hole in the backyard. So there's a new project for me.
Erin, thank you so much for telling us about something you love today.
Thank you so much, Sophie. It was really fun.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you'd like to learn more about Lord of the Rings or our guest Erin and her work, you can find her website in the episode description. And if you have something you love so freaking much you want to tell me all about it, consider this your invitation to join the show. I Love This Thing So Freaking Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed and edited by Sophie A. Katz. You can find us at Through the Window on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.